Let's turn now to Jeffrey Robinson, an American author who writes about organised crime. He's talking to us from New York. Good afternoon, Jeffrey.
Vanessa, it's been ages. How are you? It's lovely to talk to you.
It's been far too long. It's lovely to talk to you too. But I mean, what a story! And it's
all right. Well, let me set the record straight here, both David and Imogen. First of all, this is not a Swiss investigation. The Swiss didn't start it. They have very little to do with it. The Swiss have money laundering and anti-corruption laws on the books. They historically do not prosecute Swiss for those crimes. They are hypocrites about it. That's a whole other story. What happened was Loretta Lynch, who is now the Attorney General of the United States, began this investigation 3 years ago when she was the U.S. Attorney for the Eastern District of New York. So it's significant that she began it and is now the Attorney General. She called the FBI in almost immediately, and the Garcia report, Mike Garcia, who wrote this, and it was squashed by FIFA, Mike Garcia is a former U.S. attorney. The reason the U.S. gets involved is because of something called the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act, which is a 1977 law, which says that the U.S. has jurisdiction, because they claim jurisdiction, if you wire transfer dollars anywhere in the world to anybody. It doesn't have to touch the United States. Or if you are involved in any U.S. company. And if you look at the sponsorship and the television rights to FIFA and certainly the World Cup, you're talking about companies like MasterCard, Visa, Coca-Cola. You're talking about NBC Sports. You're talking about Fox News or Fox Sports. You're talking about Telemundo, who paid, they paid, I think, over £1 billion for the television rights for the last World Cup. So you're talking about American companies being involved in this. Now, the interesting thing that I find is that, yes, the U.S. and the Justice Department and the FBI have become, in effect, the world policeman for the policeman for world football, because no other country has yet shown the stomach for it. But I guarantee you that today this problem is being discussed in the City of London Police Corruption Unit, because in Britain you also have jurisdiction under the Bribery Act of 2010, which was billed as the toughest anti-corruption legislation in the world. And because pounds are involved, you will also be going after the Swiss and going after FIFA. I guarantee that.
But I suppose the question, though, that we would be asking here, Jeffrey, is why has our Serious Fraud Office not plunged in as the FBI plunged in? If you say we have the right to do so, it involves us and pounds, shillings and pence, why haven't we got involved?
No stomach for it until now.
But why not?
Well, it just isn't very British, is it?
Well, I don't know. We're meant to frown on corruption, and we adore the beautiful game, as you know.
Yeah, I know. But so far, that corruption obviously hasn't been apparent in Britain. It is now. The FBI investigation will force the British to come in. And you watch the anti-corruption unit of the City of London Police, who are great guys, will suddenly join this. There'll be calls in Parliament for Britain to get involved in this, and there will be prosecutions, because after all, the British television paid for these television rights for the World Cup, and there's British sponsorship involved. And when you've got this level of corruption, it needs to be prosecuted. Don't count on the Swiss to do anything, but you can count on the FBI, who have, frankly, no sense of humor when it comes to this.
And if I asked you to look into your crystal ball and predict what might happen in the future, I mean, do we think the entire organisation is going to be rubbed out, eradicated, and have to start fresh, or what's going to happen?
Well, let me tell you one of the great things about U.S. law enforcement. There is something called a plea bargain.
Yeah.
Now, when you're involved with federal money laundering or wire fraud, under the Act, 1977 Act, you're talking about up to 20 years per count, which is a long time in a federal prison, especially for guys who are staying at the Bowerlock Hotel and are used to room service. Doesn't quite get that way. There is something called a plea bargain. The FBI will go to these people who pled guilty and say, here's a way you can reduce your sentence. And I guarantee you, absolutely 100% guarantee you, that as of 6 o'clock yesterday morning, Mr. Blatter had no friends.
OK, we'll leave it there. We'll leave that hanging. Jeffrey, thank you very much indeed. Jeffrey Robinson there, the American author. We spoke to